At the beginning of the 2025 holiday update, the Tier 7 Tech Tree Soviet destroyer Tashkent received a little bit of a buff. It was buffed in two areas. Number one, the main battery reload time was reduced from a base reload of 5 seconds to 4.5. And then the base detectability by sea was reduced from like 7.6 something to 7.2, so a zero point 0.4 km buff. In the grand scheme of things, those are pretty minor buffs, but I've wanted to talk about them since the update dropped. The problem is, every time I play the Tashkent, it always ends up being a one-sided blowout that's completely unusable for YouTube content. So I decided the other day I was going to lock in and play this ship until I got something usable. And then in that play session, it sort of turned into something else. I played 8 games in this ship over about a 2-hour span, and 7 of them in a row were victories. The 8th and final one was a loss. So what I did, in effect, is played the Tashkent until I lost. Took 2 hours. It's a pretty good ship, in all honesty. And here, this battle on Two Brothers is the highlight of all the 7 victories I had. I think it came in the 6th or 7th match, and after it's over, I'll show you the tragic loss that we suffered to end the play session. However, let's point out what's happening here in the battle. We spawned in the middle, we noted the Kagero was on this flank and the Laffy was on the other. So we decided we'll support Kagero, because he's stealthy, he'll be able to spot the enemy DDs, and then we can help him out with the main battery guns. Which he does, he spots Friesland, and then promptly smokes up for absolutely no reason. So he's gonna die, because what about Friesland? Well, he's got really good main battery guns that are good at shredding enemy destroyers, and then he's got sonar to spot destroyers through the smokescreen, which he's doing to Kagero now. Kagero, I guess, is realizing this too late, leaving the smokescreen to reacquire vision of the Friesland, and, well, it's too little too late. The Friesland is going to be able to shred him, take him down, and then, of course, the Friesland has a smokescreen of his own, which he's going to deploy now. So, that's a great start to the battle. If only that Kagero had simply started kiting away the moment he spotted the Friesland and tried to keep him perma-spotted. Guy probably would have smoked up, but maybe we could have done some damage to him. Oh well, you can't control what your teammates are doing, but now we're in a bit of a sticky situation. We've got virtually no support on this flank. The only teammate we have with us here is a kiting friendly cruiser, who maybe will be able to help out by spotting these battleships, but what we can't do, at least not at the moment, is push back into the cap, because Friesland's concealed in smoke, and as far as we know, his sonar is probably running. If we go straight at him, he's just going to spot us, and he's going to shoot at us, and of course the spotting will allow his teammates to shoot as well. So that would be a losing proposition. But one good thing about the Tashkent, in comparison to sort of its successor, the Khabarovsk at Legendary Tier, is that while the Khabarovsk has 6-kilometer torps, Tashkent has 8. So we're going to send some torps into the Friesland smokescreen. Maybe we'll get lucky. We'll also start reversing toward the cap while keeping spot of these enemy battleships for the one cruiser that's assisting us. And, at least in this position, we have the ability to go forward and increase the distance between ourselves and the enemies should we get spotted, which we do, because we aren't built into concealment at all. We've got 6.2 km detect by sea, so there's Friesland. He feels pretty confident, I guess. He's got us spotted, he can shoot at us, he's got 3 battleships that can shoot at him as well. But we've got 1 cruiser, who does get a good hit on the Friesland, and that's great for us, because for one reason or another, I can't seem to dial in the aim here against this enemy destroyer. You see, he's doing that wiggling and jiggling, zigzagging, and it's really throwing off my shells. Surprising, Tashkent has very good shell ballistics, and they're usually pretty easy to aim at range, but thanks to the Friesland being spotted and this friendly cruiser, he's able to get the killing blow on that guy, which is really helpful. But it's still just me and him on this cap. Whatever assistance we might have had has instead gone up the channel on Two Brothers in the form of that battleship that's now in the Charlie cap. Maybe he'll have broadside shots on the Jean Bart, I don't know. In fact, I think he's a hybrid, judging by the torpedo-dropping planes coming his way. On the other side of the map, though, tragedy has occurred. The USS Laffey, which I decided not to support upon spawn due to the fact that it's a solid gunboat and can defend itself against enemy destroyers in ways that the Kagero simply couldn't, well, he's gone down. So the enemy DD, the last remaining one, has free reign of that side of the map, and we can't very well push into the Alpha Cap even though the Friesland is gone, because it's occupied by this Jean Bart, and on top of that, he's got like 2 other battleships around that island who can easily shred us if we're spotted, one of which is BA Hovercraft and the other is Wisconsin. Meanwhile, we're still providing spotting on the Jean Bart for our friendly cruiser, who's an Italian of some kind. I think it's a Michelangelo. He's smoked up, and, well, at least the Tashkent is fast. Throws off the Wisconsin's shot there, but we've got BA Hovercraft closing in very quickly around that island. So we'll deploy some more torpedoes. We'll send one the way of the Wisconsin just because it looks like he's going to sail in a straight line, and the rest of them for BA Hovercraft. Hovercraft, though, understands that rudder is a value on a battleship when pushing into a destroyer, and all of those torpedoes are going to miss, but I think we're going to get a little bit luckier on the Wisconsin. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, we've got 3 battleships hanging around the Delta Cap, understandably hesitant to push in because there is an enemy destroyer there, and, well, they have no destroyer presence of their own, so you can kind of understand why they're so hesitant, especially since the last remaining red DD is a Udachi, which has pretty scary torpedo power. Speaking of torpedoes, like I said, we miss BA Hovercraft. However, we do get some hits on Wisconsin, 2 of which cause floods. And for one reason or another, that Wisconsin apparently doesn't have DCP off of cooldown, so he's gonna flood for a little while. And now, our Michelangelo is dead, so we literally have no support at all on this flank. We're alone against 3 battleships. Well, actually, you know what? We do still have that friendly cruiser hanging around in the Bravo Cap. I don't know exactly what he's doing, aside from telling me to get back. But, well, at least he can get some fire, courtesy of our spotting, but he's a Carnot. It's not like he's the highest DPM guy in the world. But here, we have a situation where Tashkent really can thrive. This is not a conventional destroyer in the sense of like an American, for example. Those are classic gunboats, but they have floaty shells, they're very maneuverable, and they're much stealthier. So you play them at closer range to engage in knife fights against enemy DDs and, dominate caps and the like. The Tashkent is a good gunboat in a different way. It's a max range gunboat that's played more like a mini agile cruiser. There are people out there who will tell you not to play this ship that way, or not to play the Khabarovsk that way, for example, but I've had nothing but success playing these ships to their strengths. If instead you decided to play them as more of a close-range knife fighter, well, the Tashkent has slow turret traverse. I think ours is 21 seconds with the aiming systems mod and the reload mod. By the way, we've got the epic reload mod, and you can see it's procced about 3 times. So our newly buffed reload, which is 4 seconds with the unbuffed reload mod, is now down to about 3, little over that. The DPM is really pumping out here, which does come in handy. We are going to be able to DPM both the hovercraft and that Wisconsin to death. We're focusing on the hovercraft, though, for a couple of reasons at the moment. Number one, he's got secondaries, which are pretty annoying. Secondly, he's got a lot more armor, so we can only pen him in certain places. And, we need to light these fires and finish him off. We can pen the Wisconsin, I think, in a lot more places. He's got a more substantial superstructure that's more susceptible to this kind of HE damage. So work on the difficult target first, aka the hovercraft, get him off the board, then we can turn our attention to the Wisconsin and we'll be able to eliminate him much more quickly, particularly since the floods that we started on him have reduced him to nearly no HP. At least that was my thought process while I was playing this battle. Carnot has kited out of the Bravo Cap. I have no idea if he's still trying to help us or not. He might be shooting at that Jean Bart over there, 14 kilometers away. But there we get the final fire on BA Hovercraft. 2 fires, actually. That's 11 in total. His DCP is on cooldown, so he is pretty much toast. Now we can turn our attention to the Wisconsin as we get the Arsonist medal to go along with our high caliber. And like I said, much easier to shred the Wisconsin's remaining HP relative to the BA Hovercraft, so that's why we prioritize these targets the way we did. There's a fire on the Wisconsin, he's got no HP left, he DCPs the fire, doesn't matter. There's our second kill of the game, and the Liquidator medal, which is something I hardly ever get. That might be my second or third Liquidator medal over like 3 or 7 years. So yeah, very rare medal. Jean Bar still alive on this flank, but in happier news, the 2 battleships have gotten into the Delta Cap and managed to take it, even in spite of the fact that the Udachi is undoubtedly still hanging out there. Carnot finishes off the Jean Bar, and we are in a scenario where we can turn what looked like a potential loss into a victory. We sail into the Alpha Cap, we take that, the Udachi's the only thing left, and we've got one of our friendly battleships, a Marlborough, I believe, pushing into the Charlie Cap. Now I thought, at any moment, Udachi torpedoes are going to come across the screen, hit that Marlborough, and sink him. There's less than a minute left to go, and if this guy does get sunk, then probably the Udachi wins on points, because there's not enough time. Maybe not, though. Hard to tell. But the Marlborough does get into the Charlie Cap. We don't really know where the Udachi is. We know he's not in the cap, so he's either in the channel or he's outside of the cap to the right of the screen. Unclear. However, we're going to find out in a moment here. There's the torpedoes. He's out there somewhere. We're going to head in that direction. Probably never going to find him. But thankfully, the Marlborough understands the value of the rudder. He's able to dodge the Udachi torpedoes, which is great. I don't know why anybody's like all that afraid of Udachi torpedoes. They are fairly easy to dodge if you know where they're coming from. So Udachi doesn't get the kill. We're ahead on points. No time left in the battle. We win. Glorious victory in the Tashkent, featuring some farming with its newly buffed DPM. 144,000 damage. We were running Anton Gurin the whole time too. This is, by the way, a completely free-to-play build. As we load into this second battle here and the final battle of my 8-battle play session where we lost, I'll show you the commander build. We've got Bergamini and I believe Sims as the inspirations because Glass Cannon does reduce the HP. Sims helps with that. And then, of course, Bergamini reduces incoming damage the more damage you take. So it's both useful inspirations for survivability, which I think is good for the kind of destroyer the Tashkent wants to be. Now, though, we find ourselves in a match with the Fun Police, and we're center spawn on this map, being the only DD on our team. This is where Tashkent maybe doesn't shine so much, because, like I said, I'm playing it more like a mini agile cruiser with no citadel. I've got terrible detect, everything outspots me, and my opponent on the enemy team is the USS Black, which has radar. So he's last spotted headed toward this cap. He's probably going to enter it. We've got torpedoes going at the San Diego, and, well, things are not off to a great start. The blue team is sort of clustered up in the center of the map. They're not spreading out in either direction, whereas the red team is. And at some point, things are going to start falling. There's Black, though. He comes into the cap, well, not quite, and gets spotted. Maybe I shouldn't have shot at him. It looked like he was really slowing down, and I think my shooting actually prompts him to speed up, which makes my torpedo miss. Unfortunate, and we're going to have to abandon this cap, even though we were 8 seconds away from flipping it. I fully expected the radar to come out of nowhere and spot me, but no radar. I can't remember what the radar range is on the Black. Maybe it's only 7.5 km, and he did use it, but we were outside of the range. Hard to tell. Anyway, since we're not spotted, maybe we don't have to fully abandon this cap. I'd love it if somebody took out the San Diego, particularly since we are now spotted. I think that's because we just shot our main battery guns, and some ship somewhere else has line of sight on us. But we go dark as the Lug Dunham and a bunch of other ships push into the Alpha Cap over there. Not great. The enemy has taken Charlie and Alpha. And, well, the USS Black is still right in front of us. Now, you might have said I should have gone to some other cap. I don't know. I'm one destroyer trying to play the flank on which I spawn. I can't really help it. If the red team is going to spread out like this and the blue team is all going to stay sort of in the middle of the map and get itself caught in essentially crossfires, I think that's what's happening here. Baltimore comes out, gets us with the radar. Both the Lug Dunham and that other battleship, the Georgia, are coming out as well. Torpedoes on the way. Nobody seems to expect these Tashkent torpedoes for some reason, but again, they do have that 8-kilometer range. I think they're going to miss the Baltimore and the Lug Dunham, but maybe not so much on the full HP Georgia. Looks like he is sailing into them. Black is clearly still in this area. He hasn't actually managed to flip the Bravo cap, which is a small miracle, but we've lost 3 ships, a battleship and 2 cruisers. Enemy team has lost 0. We do get some nice torpedo hits on Georgia, but I doubt it's going to help because now we really are caught in a crossfire as a team, so this is going to go poorly. Black is in the cap again, so are we. I think it's maybe a straight-up 1v1 here. And I did say a little bit earlier, you don't want to be in close knife-fighting range with enemy destroyers because they do ultimately have an advantage over you. But in a short-duration engagement like this, where we have a really distinct HP advantage and the Black doesn't really have anybody to assist him, except for those ships over there, which react a little too late, well, we come out on top of that engagement, and just like that, we have 1 kill. The only kill that the blue team has so far achieved. Isn't that how it always goes? Well, we're going to go dark. We're going to flip this Bravo cap. I don't know what else we can do. There's a lot of work to be done if we are going to win this battle. Most of the enemy team appears to be on the Bravo cap. Georgia, or the Alpha cap rather, headed toward Bravo. The Georgia is going to go around that island. We've got more torpedoes headed his way. Given we hit him earlier with some torps, maybe we'll get lucky again. Who knows? It'll only happen if he comes around that island fast enough for those 3 torps there on the right to catch him, which, if memory serves me correctly, is not going to happen. Unfortunate, and our terrible concealment of 6.2 means we're about to be spotted by Georgia. Until one of our teammates comes through and takes him down. That's 2 kills to the enemy's 4. We're still in a bit of a hole. However, we're about to flip the Bravo cap, and then the question is, what do we do next? Well, most of our team is over here near the Charlie cap, where there are 2 ships, an enemy cruiser and an enemy battleship. My thinking at the time was we need to go over here, we need to get these guys off the board immediately, and then we need to turn back around and try to defend the Bravo cap from the rest of the red team, which will undoubtedly be pushing in that direction should we find any success on this flank. We've got a pretty healthy battleship over there, and our only opponents are a York, which is going to be taken out instantly, judging by his HP, and then, unfortunately, a full HP Kansas out there, who is going to be a bit more of an intractable target and is not going to be taken out quickly. So I don't think we have any ability, really, to win this match. And as I was sailing in this direction with the York being taken out, I thought, well, you know what? We've got a cruiser and a battleship that are both going to push into the Charlie cap. Ideally, they'll be able to deal with the Kansas quickly, and the fact that they're on that cap will mean the enemy team is not getting points from it. Maybe they'll even be able to flip it. But we've got this last battleship out here all alone versus a Champagne, a Lug Dunham, and whatever else is pushing in here. Plus, the friendly CV has reversed ever so closely to the corner of the map, and the enemy team is encroaching on his position. They're undoubtedly going to spot him soon and start shooting at him. Also, they might be tempted to shoot at me if I open water gunboat with the Tashkent, so I'm going to do that. We're about to run into another battleship opponent, though, that knows the value of the rudder. The torpedoes, once again, are out at the Lug Dunham. Every single one of them is going to miss because he is going to maneuver. Good on him, I suppose. Bad for us, though. Meanwhile, friendly battleship caught in a hopeless crossfire. Unsurprisingly, he goes down. That leaves me, the other battleship that's over on the other side of the map in the Charlie Cap, fighting the Kansas, and then the friendly CV. So, as you can see, this is going to be a hopeless loss. We have no opportunity whatsoever to turn it around. I think the CV presence in this game sort of incentivizes what you saw in the beginning of the match, where one team really groups up and stays together in order to pool their AA resources or whatever they're trying to do. And, if you stay all together in a cluster in the middle of the map and you let the enemy team spread out on either side of you, you can expect to lose. And I think we would have had a chance to win this battle, actually, if the team as a whole had positioned a little bit better. It's, a disadvantage to be this kind of DD versus the USS Black, but we managed to take him out, so it's not like it's impossible. But this battle, it certainly is impossible. They've spotted the CV, they're shooting at him. I don't know what's going on with the friendly battleship versus the Kansas. They're right on top of each other. That may very well end in a ram, who knows, but, well, no ram. The Kansas just takes out the Georgia with his guns, so it's just me and the CV, and it's about to be just me in a moment here. These guys have evidently figured out it's kind of difficult to hit a maneuvering Tashkent, so why not take out the CV before they fully turn their attention to me? I guess the San Diego with his sap over there didn't really get the memo. He continues to shoot. Even Lug Dunham looks distracted for the moment. But don't worry, any second now, with these 5 minutes left to go in the battle, the CV's going to go down, and then we're going to go down. We're not going to be one of those DDs that silences the guns, goes dark for no reason, and prolongs the inevitable, as many destroyers at the end of a game like this do try to do. We're going to go down swinging with guns blazing, even though we are not going to have any success. However, it should be noted that the DPM of the Tashkent, particularly with the Epic Reload mod and following the DPM buff, is pretty good. We're at something like 78,000 damage just a moment ago, and I think we're going to be able to climb up to just over 100k before all is said and done. We'll let ourselves stay spotted during the open water gunboating, but we won't make it intentionally easy for the enemy to shoot at us. They might as well have a little bit of a challenge, since this battle seemed easy for them overall. But, not too long before they finish us off and we lose. Again, that was an 8-game session over about 2 hours. Think I started around 8 p.m. at night, finished at about 10. We're top of the leaderboard on this tragic loss. And just so you know that I'm not, making this up or exaggerating, here is what it looked like after this session was over. There's the defeat, and there are the 7 victories in a row. We can sort of highlight how they all went before we end this video, and that way you know that I'm also not exaggerating when I tell you that they were one-sided blowouts where pretty much nothing happened, and almost none of them, except the 2 that I showed you, make for any kind of interesting YouTube content at all. But there you go. Played the Tashkent till I lost, took 8 battles for it to get there, and 2 hours. Tashkent can be a good ship, as you saw from the one glorious victory we had, but it's also got some major downsides if you choose to play it the way I do. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit later than I wanted it to be on this Tashkent buff, but if so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.